2,100 miles from my home state of Texas on this campaign for my 4-year-old niece. I want to be part of a movement that actively wants to create a world that she could grow up and thrive in, a world that isn't polluting our oceans or contaminating the air that we breathe. I believe in Bernie and the movement we have all created together because Bernie was the first candidate who talked about supporting the Green New Deal. It is Bernie who understands what is at stake, because we have 10 years until the effects of climate change are irreversible. Tackling the biggest challenge humanity is facing will require everyone, which is why I'm here to help you realize what you are all able to accomplish if we work together. I come from El Paso, Texas. My city borders Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. I see firsthand the struggles of hardworking immigrants who are being demonized by the current administration. Bernie is fighting for a humane immigration policy. He is fighting to enact real change. We shouldn't punish fellow human beings seeking asylum, and my friends shouldn't have to wait over 19 years to become citizens. This is what my community needs, real change. But the strongest reason I am here is because of my friend. He was my first love, but he struggled with addiction. He desperately needed to treat his addiction, but he had aged out of his parents' insurance and was left with no way to pay for care. When he was 27 years old, he passed away. He deserved to have health care. Just like every other human being in this country, we need Medicare for all. Some people might say that we are asking for too much, that we should compromise. With Bernie, there is no middle ground. We are asking for dignity and respect. We shouldn't have to figure out how to pay to see the doctor. We shouldn't punish people seeking asylum. We can't wait any longer to address the impending climate disaster. I am standing here today fighting for myself and my community back home, but I'm here fighting for you too. Together, we are gonna fight for our families, for our friends. We're gonna fight for the people who are no longer here. As Angela Davis said, you have to act as if it's possible to radically transform the world, and you have to do it all the time. So let's go out and win New Hampshire. Let's go out and change the world. Thank you.
Democratic Representative Rennie Cushing.
Hi, I'm Rennie Cushing, and I'm from Hampton. It's a little chilly at the beach today, so it's good to come up to Rochester and spend some time here in the Opera House. I'm chair of the Criminal Justice Committee of the House of Representatives and a lifelong political activist, and it's my honor to serve as one of the co-chairs of Bernie's campaign. Bernie's no stranger to the Granite State. He's our neighbor, and we've seen him over the decades fighting for progressive politics and a society that works for all. We know his authenticity. As mayor of Burlington, he took on and beat back the wealthy and predatory speculators who sought to control the city at the expense of the poor and working people, and built it into a shining example of an inclusive, workable city. As a member of Congress, he's been a voice, sometimes a lonely voice, for all of us. For workers' rights and a living wage, for health care as a right for all, not a privilege of the few, for sane foreign policy and taking care of our veterans, for environmental justice, for the rights of women, our LGBTQ community, immigrants, and those on the margin. And it's not just his voice. Bernie walks the talk. No candidate in this race has walked more picket lines in support of working people than Bernie Sanders. Nobody calls out greed, challenges the wealthy disparity in income inequality like Bernie Sanders. He walks the talk. A couple months ago, down in Brentwood, there was an organizing drive. The workers at the Rockingham County Nursing Home were trying to form a union. And on the eve of that vote, Bernie showed up and stood with them. He listened to what they had to say, supported their efforts to organize to improve their wages, hours, and working conditions. And as I listened to Bernie, I spoke to somebody who had just gotten off the shift. He'd spent 8 hours being part of the healthcare delivery system in our state, in our nation. He had spent 8 hours emptying bedpans. And when we talk about healthcare for all and healthcare as a right, and we know Bernie's going to lead us into getting healthcare for everyone in this country, one thing we also know is that the healthcare system that we have will be one that not just meets the needs of patients, but also meets the needs of those who are serving those patients, including people who empty bedpans. So, history really calls to us. We have 3 days to send a message to the entire country. The eyes of the world are on Rochester right now. They're in New Hampshire. We have a responsibility and we have a hope. And I would urge us all to give everything we have to help stand by someone who has always stood for us for 4 decades, a man of New England granite, Bernie Sanders for president.
Please give your silent attention to the founder of the Facebook group, Deaf People for Bernie, Sarah Wilson.
Hello, everyone. Sarah Wilson. I received my bachelor's degree from RIT, the Rochester Institute of Technology. I had struggled to find a job and faced a lot of discrimination. And I learned, probably in 2015, what Senator Sanders stood for, and I was very intrigued. He had climate change on his agenda. And most of the time, the political venue was never accessible for us. And I felt that I needed some way to learn more about Bernie. And that's where I decided to roll up my sleeves and help his campaign. I started the Facebook page, Deaf People for Bernie. And currently, we have over 20,000 followers. All of us are facing different kinds of struggles of accessibility and discrimination. And one thing that is the same for all of us is that it is not an easy road. I managed to be able to get the campaign's attention and allow all of his videos to be captioned in American Sign Language and have interpreters at all his rallies and events. He and his staff have listened and responded with actions by providing accessibility to anyone who needed it. For example, when I volunteered in Boston Rally back in 2016, the building security wouldn't permit ASL interpreters to stand on stage with Bernie for safety reasons. Okay, I got that, we thought. We understood, but we still needed to be able to see the ASL interpreters. They suggested ASL interpreters stand on the opposite side from where Bernie would stand and the ADA seating, which wasn't exactly great, and it wasn't exactly a deaf-friendly environment. With the help of his campaign staff, the interpreters were positioned so we could see both Bernie and the interpreters with ease. The staff was so friendly and compassionate, and I felt that they were able to ensure that what we got was access. And I think that that accessibility is what the reason we're at this rally today. And that's why I believe he understands and will be my choice for the next president of the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome activist filmmaker Michael Moore.
I'm not Michael. All right, nope, I am Mindy Mesmer, not Michael Moore. Welcome in from the cold. What a great morning. It's so great to see so many people here. This is so very important. I just want to share a quick story with you. Last night, my friend Representative Rennie Cushing and I were in Manchester for the debates where we saw Bernie take a good shot at a few things last night. And we went to the airport diner in Manchester. And we sat down, and my back was to a group of young people who all of a sudden started screaming. There was a big commotion going on. And there was Bernie Sanders in the airport diner. I put the pictures on the Facebook and things like that, so check them out. But what was very amazing about that instant was I thought Justin Bieber or somebody like that was there. It was Bernie Sanders, and the kids were just so inspired by him being there. They took pictures with him. It was a great moment. And I want to say that Bernie Sanders inspired me as well. In 2016, after the primary, when I blew the whistle on the cancer cluster in the Seacoast area, and then I decided to run for office, I have to say that Bernie was someone who really inspired me to get involved. But what I found is when you do things, when you talk about the facts and you talk about the science and you try to pass policies that the big money interests don't want, people will criticize you. They'll say you're too bold. They'll say that you are that you don't speak the truth and the facts. They say that you're hard to work with, and they'll criticize you for not being willing to compromise. Does that sound familiar? And that's what they said about me. But, you know, in the past 3 years, we've passed the strictest protections on our drinking water here in New Hampshire, only to be sued on the very next day by 3M, because they're not happy with their $1 billion of profit every year from from their products being sold in New Hampshire. In 2016, Bernie was criticized as well, and he continues to be criticized for speaking out for all of us. He speaks about climate change, and back in 2016, everybody thought he was crazy. He asked us to support Medicare for all, and people called him too bold and crazy at the time as well. But now the Pentagon agrees that climate change is the top issue that we face on the planet, not only the United States, but our planet as a whole. So it's not such a crazy idea anymore. And yesterday, it was 65 degrees in Antarctica. We have a major issue. And we've lost 4 years since 2016, but now this is our chance. We need a Green New Deal. As someone who's a labor legacy and someone who supports our labor friends, we need to bring our labor friends along. We don't need the tension between our labor partners and our environmental changes that we need to address climate change. That's what the Green New Deal does. We need to bring everyone along for Medicare for all. We need to ban fracking, and we need to fight for everything. And when people say we can't have those things, it's because they're not willing to fight for us. For 40 years, we know that Bernie Sanders has been on our side fighting for us. He's been consistent. And we know that he will fight for us all again. When the moneyed interests like 3M, DuPont, and ExxonMobil say, no, 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 we can't do it, and instill doubt in the rest of us, we know Bernie Sanders will stand up to them. And that's why those kids went crazy over Bernie in the diner last night. That's why the Sunrise Movement and New Hampshire Youth Movement endorsed Bernie Sanders. We have to listen to the youth, and we have to fight for them and for their future, and fight for Bernie Sanders for president. Right now, we have the last chance to make him president. Join with me, get all of your friends to vote on Tuesday, and we must make Bernie Sanders win New Hampshire. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage the real activist filmmaker, Michael Moore.
Thank you so much, Rochester. Rochester for Bernie! Wow, this is I'm so honored to be traveling with Bernie. First across Iowa, and then to a state that has a primary organized and run by the people called the government. Yes, the government does great things, like hold elections, make sure the traffic lights go red, then green. It's a wonderful thing. But thank you for having us here today. I've been traveling now on and off for the last 3 weeks with Bernie, so I've learned a number of things about him that I'd like to share with you today on this stage. He, in every single speech, I hear these words. And I never get to see them in the sound bites on TV because it doesn't quite fit with the narrative that likes to be told. So I ask you, those of you who are filming this today, I know you don't have a choice in it because you're just the camera people, but thank you, camera people and sound people, for working here today. Yeah, thank you. And I'm a big believer that the sound people should be paid the same as the camera people. Just saying, the sound is just as important as picture. Bernie is constantly talking about, as I travel with him, love and compassion. These are the two words I hear over and over and over again. Because if you believe that if someone gets sick, that they should not have to go bankrupt or lose their home, that's an act of love. If you believe that people should be able to go back to school or get a job or whatever and have adequate and wonderful daycare, that's an act of love. If you believe that this is our last best chance to save this planet in the climate emergency that we are in, that is an act of love and compassion. I am not surprised that the youngest voters in every single poll, first they were doing it like 18 to 29. Bernie had the vast majority of them. There was a poll in Texas last week. 70% of 18 to 29-year-old Texans were for Bernie Sanders. So then they started raising it. The next poll, it was, oh, that's too good. That looks, move it up to 18 to 35. 18 to 35, 52% of 18 and 35-year-olds were for Bernie. So then the next poll, they raised it to 18 to 45, and the number one candidate was Bernie Sanders. It's like, I think it's great when you're 45, you're still called a young voter. Well, I'm waiting for the next poll. Move it to 60, move it to 60. He won't come in first. 18 to 60. Why are the youngest people for Bernie? Why? But I'm telling you here, when we were your age, with the future, except that's the beautiful thing. Young voters want Bernie because he's fighting for their future. He acknowledges their future. And with all due respect to the senator, he's not fighting for his future. He's in his future. So what's in it for him? Because isn't that how a politician is supposed to think? What's in it for me? And Bernie, I can guarantee you, has never asked that question. Not since the time at 21 years old, 1963, he goes to a civil rights demonstration in Chicago and is arrested. Have you seen the picture? Go online and look at this picture. They're like, he's got police on both arms. He obviously missed the civil disobedience training where he's supposed to go limp. Put the cuffs. Not Bernie. Look at this picture. Let me go. I'm not saying that's how he sounded at 21, but it's a fair guess. And the next picture, that same day, they have him chained in the paddy wagon to two black women. It's so powerful. As a kid, in college. This is where he was at in 1963. It's a week before Martin Luther King's March on Washington. That's how Bernie has been always ahead of this curve. In 1972, he wrote an op-ed to his local paper about how the government should have no role in telling a woman what she can do with her reproductive rights. This is 1972. This is before Roe versus Wade. In the same article, he says that there should be no discrimination against anyone because they love someone of their same gender. 1972. 1972. This is, for the younger people here, this is just 3 years after Stonewall. The term gay rights doesn't exist yet. He's for gay rights before there are gay rights. It's like, this is his whole life. And so when somebody asked him in Dubuque a couple weeks ago when we were with him, and they said, don't you think you're too old? Don't you think you're too old to be president? And he said, well, yeah, I am. But the advantage I have over my the kids here, he said the kids, that I'm competing with for the Democratic nomination. He says, I have a lifetime record. I have a lifetime record of standing on the side of the oppressed, of women, of people of color. Whatever it was, he was before people, some of us even were even thinking about it. He was thinking about it and getting arrested for it and walking the picket line with nurses and teachers and construction workers. When he was mayor of Burlington, he did this. He's management when you're mayor. He's out walking the picket line with the people picketing the city of Burlington. So he said to the person in Dubuque, he said, yeah, so I have this record. That's one thing. You can see it's consistent. I've never changed. I've never sold out. I can't be bought. And there's one thing you know about people my age, if you have grandparents. We don't change. We're pretty set in our ways. And he said, I am set in my ways when it comes to health care, when it comes to daycare, when it comes to mass incarceration, when it comes to the minimum wage. I am that person. I've always been that person. I didn't vote for Republicans who fought against a woman's right to choose, who stopped young people from all of this. This is who he is. There's no comparison. It's so amazing if you look at this record of his. And so I'm not surprised that young people are for him. And I have to say this too. I said this, I had this thought the other day. I wanted to speak to my fellow boomers. Any boomers in the audience here? Okay, now, first of all, have you told the young people you know the secret? No, we haven't told them. We don't want them to know because we want them to like us. We started them on the Beatles and Jackson Browne, and they all grew up liking our music, and we liked it. And they were not just our children, but our friends, right? And so, but we've not told them the truth. Boomers, how much did you pay per semester to go to college, to go to university? What? $400 a semester. Young people, are you listening? How much? 100. Do I hear $50 a semester? $50 a semester. Anybody in the balcony? That's how much we paid. If you went to the SUNY system or the UC system in California, you paid zero. You paid for your books. That's it. That's how we went to school. Hey, how's it feeling being in debt until you're 50 now? Not good, does it? So boomers, we taught you not to swear too. Boomers, now they know. Don't hate us, but that's the world we left you. We put you now in a debtor's prison at the age of 22, where you are shackled to a job that you may not like. You may hate it. It doesn't matter. You've got a monthly payment back to the government. And it's what I think the only thing you can't, when you get to file for bankruptcy or whatever, they've got you forever. This is so wrong, and Bernie is so offended by it. And let me tell you, his student debt was paid off a long time ago. So again, he has no personal interest in this. He gets nothing out of it. Why is he fighting to make sure that you can go to college for free, tuition free, and to get rid of this awful student debt that you're carrying? Because it's the right thing. Because you know why also? Back in the day of our parents and our grandparents who did not go to college, they thought the most important thing was to make sure we did. They knew the society would get better if we were educated. They knew that we would have new inventions, new discoveries, new cures if we were educated. There's something very, very wrong with the way the system is set up to guarantee that we have so much stress, so much anxiety in this debtor's prison. And then as Bernie calls it, the diseases of despair and stress. It's an economic disease, first of all, but it actually creates affects our physical health. Why would we do this to our children? Why? What nation does this to their own? It makes no sense. And now the fact that we are leaving you with a planet, we can't call this climate change. The change has already occurred. Bill McKibben, who's from the state next door, he told us 10 years ago, if we went past 350 parts per million of carbon in the atmosphere, it was too late. Remember that? 10 years ago, we were told there's no reversing it. There's nothing we can do to fix it. You know what we're at now? 415 parts per million. It's too late. That's what we've left our young people. Why are they for Bernie 18 to 29, 18 to 35, 18 to 45? Why? I wonder why. Maybe they want to live. Because I'll tell you, when the collapse truly happens, and it's in the process right now of happening, I won't be here. Bernie won't be here. Boomers, the ones that are working out, some of them will be here. My sister's with me here. She's a vegan. Lives in San Diego, great weather. She'll be here. But you'll be here, 18 to 45-year-olds. You'll be here, and you know you're going to be here, and you know what we've left you. A climate emergency where we should be screaming bloody murder, where we should be ringing every siren we can. And that's why you're for Bernie. That's why. He's the only one of these candidates that's going to make it happen. The others care about it too. I'm not saying that. And the others will work on it. But haven't we learned one thing from the great thing about Obamacare, which gave us awesome stuff? No pre-existing conditions on your parents till you're 26, et cetera, et cetera. But it's only halfway. It's a half measure. Are we not done with half measures? Bernie is the only candidate that will give us the full measure. Bernie is the candidate that's going to say, there's no halfway to the climate emergency. We have to go all the way. All the way. No halfway measures. All the great things that we've done, all the great things that we have accomplished. 100 years ago this year, women getting the right to vote. What if the suffragettes had said back then, well, no, that's okay. You can make it half the women. Well, just a half measure is good. It's better than nothing. Or half the women and half the states can vote. Would that be okay? What if Lincoln had said half the slaves can be free? No more half measures. The planet is dying. Our children are going to choke to death. They're going to drown on this planet. This is our moment. You know that, right? We don't get 4 more years of this. That's it. And so I've actually asked friends of mine who are for other candidates. I said, no, they're good. These are good. This is a good. They all said something great last night at the debate, didn't they? Each one of them. Biden coming over and hugging Bernie. No, that was very sweet. Klobuchar's comment about why Buttigieg likes cartoons. And then the director, God bless the director who was over in the booth, immediately cuts to Buttigieg, and he had this, he had this cartoon thing that he was doing, and it was really weird. And I thought, well, Amy has a great sense of humor and timing. You know, Elizabeth said great things. Steyer said great things. Andrew Yang said great things. This is a good group of human beings. But the reason why Bernie's the one, and the one to beat Trump, and the polls all show, the 4 or 5 of them, they show in different polls, beat Trump. But only Bernie beats Trump by the margin that he beats Trump at. And why is that? Why is that? Because the average American, even if they don't agree 100% with everything that Bernie stands for, they know that Bernie's a fighter. Bernie will not sell out. Bernie cannot be bought. That's the Bernie Sanders they know, and they know that they have their best chance of getting rid of Donald Trump with Bernie Sanders taking him on. Did you hear in the news this week, and I know we all complain about how we don't hear a lot of Bernie stuff, which is odd considering he's the front runner. Boy, I got to say, you know, the establishment really does not want him. They are scared of him, not just winning the nomination, but winning the White House. Because he's made it very clear that we're not voting for him. We're voting for us. We're voting for us. And Bernie's vision of January 20 next year is not just Bernie Sanders walking into the Oval Office, but teachers walking into the Oval Office and nurses walking into the Oval Office. And all of us, everybody comes in with him. That's how his 4 or 8 years are going to be. I mean, what would that look like if we had someone in the Oval Office that wasn't afraid? Well, you can't say that. The Republicans won't like that. Well, the Republicans are in for a rude awakening considering how they nullified the Constitution this week. The Republicans... My dad was in the Marine Corps. He fought in all those South Pacific battles, those awful Saving Private Ryan every time he was a private in the Marine Corps. And that thing would come down in the amphibious vehicle. And half of them were mowed down immediately. I don't even know how he lived through all that. And by the time he got into his 80s and 90s, he couldn't believe that George W. Bush was president. He couldn't believe that someone like Donald Trump might be running. It was offensive to him. And I read this story this week, and I read it actually on the Rolling Stone website. It was a news story, and I kept looking for it on other news sites, and only Rolling Stone ran it as far as I could see. Maybe some of you ran it in your papers. It was a story on which of these Democratic candidates has the most campaign contributions from active duty service members. Bernie Sanders at number 1. Did you know that? Now, why does he get more contributions from service members, from soldiers, from airwomen and airmen and sailors? Why Bernie Sanders? No, not only no more endless war, it's because these young people who've been over there to Iraq and Afghanistan, they've seen the truth. They know that they were not sent on a mission to defend you and I. They are volunteers. They make a deal with us. When they go to volunteer, they're saying that they're willing to die, if necessary, so that you and I don't have to. What a gift is that? Is there a greater gift a human can give another human than to say, I will give my life so that you don't have to? That's our voluntary military. And all they ask from us in return is that we never put them in harm's way unless it's absolutely necessary. And we have not done that. We have broken faith. The Iraq War was a lie. Afghanistan is an endless war. This is all wrong. The soldiers know it, and that's why they're for Bernie Sanders. After the debate, we went, there was a little, I don't know what it was some bar area in one of the hotels there in Manchester. And the pundit class was all there. Their heads are spinning. They can't explain away how is it that in all these polls now, not just in New Hampshire, but across the country, Bernie is number one. They should get out of their bubble and go see what it's like. Because as we crisscross Iowa, we saw Flint, Michigan, all the way from Davenport over to Council Bluffs and Sioux City. It's everywhere now. All the struggle of people trying to get by, of living from paycheck to paycheck. The majority of Americans not having $500 to their name so that they can get by. The majority not having $500. That's just so wrong. Where is the American dream? Bernie stands for that. Bernie will fight for this. Bernie is the person who is going to win. He's going to beat Trump. And if I hear this socialist thing one more time, I'm like laughing so much I don't understand. All Bernie sounds like is this: the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. A rich man will have a harder time getting into heaven than the camel will have getting through the eye of the needle. That was a very famous democratic socialist from a couple thousand years ago. That democratic socialist, when he's given a sermon and there's only 2 pieces of fish and 5 loaves of bread and there's 5,000 people to feed, and he just said, go ahead and feed them. Just make sure everybody gets everybody gets a piece of something. Okay. Oh yeah, I know, I'm on my Bible thing. Yeah. This is Ari. Let's hear it for Ari over here. No, but we need to explain to our fellow Americans what this means. It means Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was over and over again called a communist. He was called a traitor over and over and over again, but he had the guts and the courage to stand up to it. Bernie's the only one of these candidates who will not back down from the Republicans or from Donald Trump. Bernie is the one that's going to get us the Senate back in the hands of the Democrats. Bernie's the one. So I want to thank everybody for being here today. I'm so happy to be here. Let's get out there and make New Hampshire the first primary for Bernie Sanders. Thank you, everybody.
Please welcome U.S. Representative from Wisconsin, Representative Mark Pocan.
Hello, New Hampshire. Let's hear it again for Michael Moore. Michael often does more in any one of his documentaries than a lot of politicians do in their entire careers. So thank you, Michael, for being here for Bernie Sanders. My name is Mark Pocan. I represent Wisconsin's 2nd Congressional District. Thank you for having the weather that I can enjoy. I appreciate it. I co-chair the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and we are very proud, many of our members, to be backing Bernie Sanders as, absolutely, the Progressive Caucus. Thank you. Also, as one of 9 out members of Congress, I co-chair the Equality Caucus in Congress. But today, I am here as the chair of the Wisconsin for Bernie campaign. I have been traveling through Iowa and Nevada, now New Hampshire, and I can tell you, we are all here for the same reasons. We share the values that Bernie has. And what's great about this campaign is Bernie may be the person who's out there advocating for those values, but this campaign is about each and every one of us here today. This is about building a movement so we can actually enact those policies. And Bernie Sanders is the person that's going to get elected president to see those things get done. What I didn't expect is that every place I've gone afterwards, people have come up and shared stories, very personal stories about what this campaign means to them and what the situation's for them. And I just want to do this real quick. If you can make some noise when I raise these issues, if they've affected you or someone close to you, if you or someone you know had to live for a while on minimum wage, $7 and a few change, and had a hard time getting by. If you're concerned about your children or your grandchildren or your grandchildren's grandchildren's future with a planet that will exist because we have a climate that will exist and we have a Green New Deal. Make some noise if you're concerned that you're going to have a son or daughter someday have to go to a war in another country without a plan or a purpose or an end, and we have to end those endless wars. And make a little noise if you've ever had a hard time getting health insurance, paying for your prescription drugs, or getting by without health care. I'm going to share one really quick story because I got to keep moving. I don't have the time that Michael Moore had. I'm going to give you, I had a woman come up in Dubuque, Iowa, and I live an hour and 10 minutes from Dubuque. And she told me that her son couldn't get access to health care and had mental illness. And because he couldn't get access to health care, he got addicted to drugs, he committed a crime, and wound up getting incarcerated. While in prison, that is one of the few places you are guaranteed to get health care. And he had hepatitis C. And because of it, he got the hepatitis C drug. That pill that you have to take every day for 90 days in a row is $1,000 a pill. $90,000. The company that bought the company that made that drug recouped their investment the first year, but the top 5 executives' bonus the first year was enough to cure every person in the US, Canada, Australia, Great Britain, and one other country of hepatitis C. That's the stories that build this campaign. So when the political pundits and the political establishment, the multimillionaires and the billionaires and the Wall Street types all say they want change, they're not talking about the change we're talking about, right? They want marginal, soft changes. But the people that I see at every single stop are telling me these stories that we have to deal with. And those same people want to tell you that Bernie can't win. Well, I'll tell you, the reason they're telling you that is because they don't want to see that significant change. But let me tell you about my home state of Wisconsin. When Bernie ran in 2016, he won 71 of 72 counties in my state. Think about New Hampshire. Think about Wisconsin. That's a lot of different parts of the state to be able to win. Not only that, he won 73% of young voters. We don't win in 2020 without young voters. He got 72% of independents. Too many independents either stayed home or voted for Donald Trump. We don't win without those voters. He got a majority of women, a majority of union voters, a majority of every economic class. That is how we win the election in November. Too often, we are safe and stale and uninspiring. And to too many people, safe means stay away from the election. We have to be big and bold and talk about the problems this country is facing and admit there are solutions. The good news is people agree with us 60 to 80% on those solutions. But we have got to convince them we really mean it, and we have to earn their votes. So are you going to help us do that in New Hampshire in the next few days? Are we going to make sure that the first primary in the nation is the first primary victory for Bernie Sanders? Everyone is watching what's going to happen in this state. After Iowa, and I was in Iowa, you likely will have your results before they will. You're going to be the first primary and the first and second state. So you've got a lot riding on it. So let me ask you this. It is so important we do this. In the coming days, will you commit to knock on more doors to get out more voters to vote on Tuesday? Will you commit to make more phone calls so that we can get more people out to vote on Election Day? Will you talk to every friend and family member, your neighbors, your coworkers, your exes? All right, maybe not your exes, especially if it's in the plural. We need to talk to everybody to make sure they get out to vote. In Wisconsin, in my hometown, a county Bernie Sanders won, Kenosha County. My dad ran for mayor in 1984. We lost by 31 votes out of 22,000 cast. 4 years earlier, the mayor won by 4 votes. If each of us talks to just 1 or 2 more people, that could be the difference in any election and the difference on Tuesday. So let's do everything we can in the coming days, and let's make sure it is New Hampshire, the state that sends Bernie Sanders to the White House. Thank you so much for all you're doing and you're going to do. Thank you.
New Hampshire. My. New Hampshire. Such a pleasure to be here with you. I am Senator Nina Turner, one of the national co-chairs for Senator Sanders' 2020 campaign. We're going to take it to the streets, New Hampshire. I agree with Michael Moore that I know that New Hampshire is going to set it off on Tuesday. We're going to do this thing. So only all that we love is on the line. That's it. Nothing too big. Nothing too important, just all that we love. And so when we think about what has happened in this country over the last few decades in terms of the demise of the middle class, the fact that folks have to work more and more jobs just to make ends meet, the whole notion that in the United States of America, that the workaday people of this nation do not deserve to live a good life. That is what the system says. But thank God Almighty, we got a candidate who has said something different, who says to Wall Street, I'm coming for your greed, Wall Street. To the pharmaceutical industry, I'm coming for your greed. To the fossil fuel industry, I'm coming for your greed. That's the kind of leader that we need. And as the congressman laid out and Michael Moore laid out and everybody that has been right in front of you so far this afternoon is that we understand that we have a champion who, in the words of Dr. Cornel West, has been a long-distance runner for justice for all of his life. We must stand up in our time for what is just, for what is right, and for what is good. And we're doing that with Senator Bernie Sanders. So in the 1930s, New Hampshire, because there's nothing new under the sun. In the 1930s, FDR had to battle with the elites of his time. The elites that did not want to see him bring about the sea change that was necessary for working class people from all backgrounds in this country. And he said to the elites, I welcome your hatred. In the 21st century vernacular, Senator Bernie Sanders is saying the same thing to the elites of both parties in this country, to people who do not want to see the workaday people of this nation rise up. I welcome your hatred. Haters gonna hate. I'm gonna list you all on my website. He got them all listed on the website. We probably got to add a few more. So what is important about this run and what is different than any other candidate that is running is that we are the movement that fuels Senator Bernie Sanders. When he says this is not about me, this is about us, that is exactly what he means. It's about us. It is about future generations. Not me, us. Some of you may recall through history that in 1944, FDR called for an economic bill of rights. The right to a job, right to a living wage, right to affordable housing, right to quality education, right to a secure retirement, right to decent health care. Sounds very similar, doesn't it? And then when we fast forward, baby, to the 60s, a man by the name of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Hello, somebody. He challenged this system. He said something is wrong with this system. He challenged militarism. He challenged materialism. He challenged poverty. And baby, he challenged racism. Does that sound familiar? Hello, somebody. We welcome their hatred. New Hampshire, you deserve so much more than what you have right now. The everyday people of this country deserve so much better. And I want for you what I want for my own family. I want for your community what I want for my own community. I want for your state what I want for my great state of Ohio. And we collectively should want for our sisters and brothers in other parts of this world what we want for the United States of America. We are in this together. So, it is time, New Hampshire, for people to determine whose side they are on. Either you are on the side of the people or you are not. Either you believe in Medicare for all, not half-measure Medicare if you choose to, or you do not. Either you believe that the Green New Deal is what is necessary to take us to the next level, or you do not. Either you believe that we have an obligation to correct a legal system that is unjust in every stretch of the imagination, that sees black men as more criminal than anybody else, black women as more criminal than anybody else, indigenous people, poor people, or you do not. We can't play games with this. It's funny to me, sisters and brothers, that we can bail out Wall Street, but you got people hemming and hawing about putting a down payment on Main Street. It is time to redirect the money, the energy, and the synergy of this nation towards the everyday people of this nation. You deserve better. We all deserve better. So we're going to ask the question, whose side are you on? We got a candidate who is taking $0 from billionaires. Hello, somebody. We got a candidate who doesn't have fundraisers in wine caves with Swarovski crystals. Hello, somebody. We got a candidate who never stopped believing in Medicare for all, who doesn't take money from special interests who dictate what side you are on. Senator Bernie Sanders is on the side of the people. That's it. That's it, and that's all. So it does matter who we elect. Because people in this nation are in peril. It does matter. So no more half measure. We are going all the way with the people's champion. Now, our senator, New Hampshire, our senator may be 78, but baby, we about to make him 46. Come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. We gonna do this. We gonna take him to the White House. We gonna make him 46. Yeah, we are. We gonna do that. So New Hampshire, Sister Helen Keller once said, have the courage, or excuse me, that's not the one, alone. I got so many people. Alone, we can do very little. This is Sister Helen Keller. Together, we can do so much. That is what the not me, us mantra is all about. When everyday people are willing to put a little extra on their ordinary so that extraordinary things can happen. Over the course of history in this country, when everyday people took it to the streets and determined that they were going to change things, that is how that change happened. Not from the grassroots, baby, but from the grass. Or not from the grass tops, but from the grassroots. We are the grassroots. So New Hampshire, can you do something for us, sister? Can you raise one hand for yourself and one hand for somebody else? And with these hands, we will have Medicare for all. With these hands, we will have college for all. With these hands, we will cancel student debt. With these hands, we will have a Green New Deal. With these hands, we will have transcendence. And with these hands, we will elect Senator Bernie Sanders, the 46th President of the United States of America. Senator, we're doing a Ussie.
Now, hey, I'm a little bit nervous. Is this old opera house going to stay standing after this event? Got a lot of people here. Wow, this is an incredible turnout. And to those folks, I think we had 150 or so folks who could not get in. We thank them very much, standing out in the cold. And it's just a great turnout. So Rochester, thank you very, very much. And before I go further, let me introduce you to somebody who is going to be a great first lady, my wife, Jane Sanders. And let me thank Rennie Cushing, who's doing a great job in the legislature. Rennie, thank you, and for your support. And let me thank Sarah Wilson, who's the founder of the Facebook group, Deaf People for Bernie Sanders. Sarah, thank you. And let me thank Michael Moore. Michael Moore has played an extraordinarily important role in modern America because he has had the courage as a filmmaker to raise issues and talk about things that the corporate media often does not talk about. So, Michael, thank you for your support and for all the great work you do. Let me thank Mindy Mesner for her support and for being one of the great environmentalists in New England. You have heard from Mark Pecan, who is a co-chair of the House Progressive Caucus, a great congressman from the state of Wisconsin. Mark, thank you so much. And let me thank Senator Nina Turner. Now, my only criticism of Senator Turner is I always have to follow her, which is a hard thing to do. But Senator Turner has not only been running around the state of Iowa, she's not only been running around New Hampshire, she's been running all over this country. And not only as part of our campaign, what she is doing is the most important work that anybody can do, and that is involve working people in the political process. That's what Senator Turner has been doing, and we thank her so much for that. So today is going to be we were kind of spent more time in Washington than I had anticipated with the impeachment trial. So today is going to be a very busy day here in New Hampshire. We started in Concord, we went to Dover, we're here. We're going back to Concord, we're going to Merrimack, we're going back to Manchester. So we got a busy day. So I'm going to be a little bit shorter than I usually am, and only 2 hours. It's a joke. And let me say that our campaign is off to a great start. After finally the votes were counted in Iowa, took them a little while, we won the vote by 6,000 votes. And in the caucus there, they have a realignment. People can go to a second choice if your candidate doesn't make 15%. We won that vote by 2,500 votes. And I don't know about other people, but here in northern New England, when you win the vote, you usually win the election. So, and I want to say a word to the people of New Hampshire. Not only, and thanking them not only for the support that we got 4 years ago, but for doing something extraordinarily important above and beyond the primary. And that is when we began the campaign in 2016, and we came to New Hampshire, we brought forth an agenda that spoke to the needs of working people. And the corporate media and the establishment said, well, you know, Bernie is a nice guy, but his agenda is crazy. Nobody believes in that agenda. I mean, who in their right mind thinks that we should raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour? That's too radical an idea. Imagine making public colleges and universities tuition-free so that all people, regardless of their income, can get a higher education. How radical and crazy can you be? And healthcare is a human right, doing what every other major country on earth does. Who does Bernie Sanders think he is? Nobody would believe that. And talking about climate change as a national crisis. My God, you know, who believes that? And what New Hampshire did, which was enormously important as the first primary state in the country. What New Hampshire said, these ideas are not radical. These ideas are not extreme. Having a government that works for all of us, not just the wealthy, is exactly what we have to do. And after we won here in New Hampshire, what ended up happening is we won 21 more states. But New Hampshire broke through and said to the establishment that, you know what, standing up for working families is not a radical idea. It's exactly what we should be doing as a nation. So New Hampshire, thank you so much for the enormously important role that you have played. What our campaign is about, and what I am enormously proud of, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, is that in this campaign up to now, we have received more campaign contributions, I think we're over 6 million, from more Americans, over 1.5 million, than any, averaging, I should tell you, $18.50 a piece. And that is more contributions from more people than any candidate in the history of the United States of America. Now, why is that important? It is important because it contrasts with the way other candidates do business. Other candidates, and there are several who have raised huge amounts of money from billionaires. Well, we don't raise large amounts of money. In fact, we don't raise any amounts of money from billionaires. We don't have a super PAC. We don't want a super PAC. We don't want billionaires' money. We are running a campaign for working people, funded by working people, and that is why we are going to win here in New Hampshire and all over this country. And the other reason I believe we're going to win not only here in New Hampshire, but across this country, is we are running a different type of campaign, not only in terms of how we fund it, but in terms of the grassroots movement that we are putting together. And I want you all to know that here in New Hampshire, we have knocked on hundreds of thousands of doors. And I want to thank all of the, I imagine, thousands of volunteers from one end of the state to the other for getting out in the cold and the snow, knocking on doors, for making the phone calls that have to be made, for doing social media. Volunteers, staff, thank you so much for running a great campaign here in New Hampshire. And what this campaign is about is not only raising money in a different way than anyone has ever done it, it's not only having an unprecedented grassroots movement. We are doing those things because we have an agenda that speaks to the needs of working families in New Hampshire, in Vermont, and all across this country. A working class that has for so many years been ignored by the political establishment. And what our agenda is about is not complicated. We understand that when Trump talks about this great booming economy, what he is talking about primarily is that his billionaire friends are doing well. And that is right. Trump, every now and then, is right. His billionaire friends are doing very well. In fact, in the last 3 years since he has been president, billionaires have seen an $800 billion increase in their wealth. 37% increase in the wealth for billionaires. Last year, though, in the midst of this so-called booming economy, the average worker saw a 17-cent increase in his or her wages, less than 1% in real inflation accounted for wages. 37% increase in the wealth of billionaires, 1% increase in wages for working Americans. Hey, Mr. Trump, that ain't a great economy for the working families of this country. So when we talk about an economy that works for working people, what are we talking about? It's not complicated. Everybody knows what has to be done. We're going to raise that federal minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. And here is another really radical idea. You ready for a real radical one? Hold on, folks. Maybe women should be paid equally to men for the work they do. Whoa, what a radical idea. In the year 2020, I know, hey, sometimes you got to go out on the limb. But in the year 2020, as Senator Turner often says, women deserve the whole damn dollar, all right? Not 79 cents of it. And here's another radical idea. There are millions of workers out there who want to form unions. They want to join unions. They want to get involved in collective bargaining because they have decent wages, decent working conditions. We have legislation that will double the number of union workers over a 4-year period. And at a time when the infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our water systems, wastewater plants, our schools are crumbling all across this country, we have a proposal that will put millions of workers to work in good-paying union jobs, rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. What our campaign is about is thinking outside of the box. It's thinking beyond the discussions that take place in Congress or what you see in the corporate media. And ask you to take a step back and to say, what is going on here in the richest country in the history of the world? Everybody knows, this is kind of a common knowledge, that the future of our country depends upon how well our children are doing. Question, why in the richest country on earth do we give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% in large corporations, and yet we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. Together, we are going to change priorities in America and pay attention to the needs of our people, not to the wealthy. And when you talk about the children, you're talking about education. And that means we need to fundamentally reform a broken and dysfunctional child care system so that every working family in this country knows that when they go to work, their kids are in high quality, affordable, and in fact, universal child care in this country. That is not a radical idea. That's not a radical idea. And when we talk about education, it means that we're going to triple funding for low-income Title I schools so that all kids get a quality education, not an education dependent upon your zip code. And when we talk about public education, which is what we support, it means supporting educators, teachers. We live in a country where major league pitchers can sign contracts for hundreds of millions of dollars. And yet, a couple of months ago, I met with educators here in New Hampshire, and they were telling me there are school districts in this state where the starting salary of teachers is less than $28,000 a year. We are going to change that because we are going to change national priorities. We understand that education is one of the most important things a civilized society can do. What we want to do is attract the best and brightest young people to become teachers, to say with pride that they are so excited about having an impact on the lives of thousands of people, young people during their career. And that is why we're going to move forward so that no teacher in America makes less than $60,000 a year. And it also means when you talk about education, I want kids in the 6th grade here in New Hampshire and in Vermont to understand that if they study hard and do their schoolwork, they will be able to get a higher education, go to college, go to a trade school, regardless of the income of their families. All right, I grew up in a working class family. My family never had any money. But I want everybody in this state and in this country to know that if you take school seriously, you will be able to get a higher education because A, we're going to make public colleges and universities tuition free. And by the way, 4 years ago, that was a radical idea. Ain't so radical now. States and cities and counties all over the country are moving in exactly that direction. We've already had an impact. We got to do it in 50 states in America. And second of all, we are going to cancel all student debt in America. And we're going to do that. We're going to do that through a modest tax on Wall Street speculation. You all remember, and this is what changing governments is about. This is what it means to have a government that represents working people, not billionaires. 11 years ago, against my vote, Congress bailed out the crooks on Wall Street whose illegal behavior nearly destroyed the economy. Well, today we're going to bail out young people in this country and ask Wall Street to pay for it. And I'll tell you what else an agenda, progressive agenda, means in this country. It means that we will end the international embarrassment of being the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right. Now, Vermont borders on Canada, New Hampshire borders on Canada. And we have to ask ourselves why it is that our neighbors to the north, if you are seriously ill and you end up in the hospital there for a month, how does it happen that you get quality care there and you leave the hospital without paying a nickel because their system is publicly funded? How does it happen that we spend twice as much per capita as our Canadian friends and as friends throughout Europe, and yet despite spending $11,000 for every man, woman, and child, outrageous sum of money, we end up with 87 million Americans who are either uninsured or underinsured? We have 30,000 people a year dying because they don't get to a doctor when they should because they're uninsured. We have 500,000 people going bankrupt every year because of medically related debt. In America, you should not go bankrupt because you're dealing with cancer or heart disease. That is an outrage. So our message to the healthcare industry, which made $100 billion in profit last year. Our message is that the function of a healthcare system in a humane and civilized society is to provide healthcare to all as a right, not to make billions in profits for the insurance companies and the drug companies. And I have a special word to the pharmaceutical industry. You know, in my office, we have a debate, and we say, which institution in America is the most corrupt and the most greedy? Some of us, there's a big debate going on. Some say, hey, Wall Street, they're totally crooked. All right? And some say the pharmaceutical industry. It's a hard choice. I kind of lean toward the drug companies being the most corrupt and greedy in the United States. So we got a message to the drug companies. We will not allow you to continue charging American people, in some cases, 10 times more for the same exact drug sold in Canada or in Europe. That's going to end. And it's not only the greed of the drug companies. Let's be clear. We're going to have an attorney general who is going to investigate them, and I tell you what the conclusion will be, because we know this already. They're corrupt. All right, so it's not greed, we know. Greed is people do anything to make money, but you could do that legally. But these guys are not only greedy, they are bloody corrupt. That means they engage in collusion, they engage in price fixing to artificially raise prices. And I will tell you this, because I know, Vermont has suffered from the opioid epidemic. States all over the country. New Hampshire has been particularly hard hit. And I suspect that in this room, there are folks who know people whose lives have been lost as a result of the opioid epidemic. And I want you all to hear this, because this is what greed and corruption is about. The pharmaceutical industry, the opioid manufacturers, produced a product that they learned soon enough was addictive and was killing people. But it was also making them a lot of money. And you know what they did? After they learned that this product was addictive and killing people, their response was to hire more salespeople and to push their product, just like heroin pushers do. Same thing, just like heroin pushers. So we are not only going to be lowering drug prices in this country significantly, and under Medicare for All, nobody will have to pay more than $200 a year for prescription drugs. But we are going to investigate, and we are going to deal with the criminal activities of the pharmaceutical industry. You cannot go around pushing a product that is addictive and killing people and get away with it. And we will not allow them to do that. Now, there's another issue out there, which is such a big issue. I mean, one of the things that we're trying to do in this campaign is to be honest with the American people and to say that there are very significant challenges out there. We can deal with those challenges if we stand together and have the courage to take on powerful special interests. But these are huge challenges. And if we're going to be honest with each other and with our kids, we have got to confront the challenges, not push them under the rug. And one of those challenges is obviously the existential threat to our country and the planet of climate change. Now, Donald Trump every day is doing horrific things in our country. But one of the worst things that he is doing, not only to the people of America, but to the people of the world, is denying the reality of climate change. And I will tell you something which should make all of us nervous. We can deal with it, but it makes us nervous. Is what the scientists are telling us is not just that climate change is real or it's caused by human activity. We all know that. What they are telling us now is they have underestimated the degree, severity, and speed in which climate change is ravaging our country and the world. They have underestimated the speed and the degree to which the polar ice caps are melting and the oceans are warming, which means significantly higher sea levels, which will inundate coastal regions in the United States and all over the world. Major American cities will be partially or maybe even completely underwater. I'm talking about Miami, New Orleans, Charleston, New York City, and other cities. I'm talking about Bangladesh, Vietnam, low-sea countries, which could be partially underwater. So I am very proud to tell you that we have not run away from this challenge. It's tough. It is a tough issue, and no one has a magical, quick solution, but it is an issue that has to be dealt with. And what we have proposed is a sweeping proposal on climate change, which is, in fact, the most comprehensive proposal ever brought forth by any candidate for federal office. It is based on the principles of the Green New Deal. And what that proposal basically says, in brief, is that yes, we are going to take on the greed of the fossil fuel industry. We are going to tell them that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. That whether they like it or not, we are going to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. But what makes this issue even more complicated is that if we did all of the right things in our country tomorrow, we will not have solved the problem because climate change is a global issue. So as President of the United States, unlike Trump, I will not ignore the crisis. I will not exacerbate the crisis. But what I will do is lead the effort to reach out to countries all over the world, to the people of those countries, the people in China and Russia and India and Pakistan and Brazil and in Africa, all over the country, all over the world, and say that maybe, just maybe, that instead of spending $1.8 trillion a year collectively as a planet on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, maybe we should pool our resources, fight our common enemy, which is climate change. You know, Trump wants to separate the United States from the rest of the world, but on issues of climate change, we know that if there was ever a time in world history that this countries all over the world had to come together for a common self-interest, this is that time, and that is what we have got to do. And when we talk about agendas that speak to the needs of Americans, we have got to end, again, the international embarrassment of having more people in jail than any other country. Now, I want you to think about it. China is 4 times our size in population. China is a communist authoritarian country that does not tolerate dissent very well. We got more people in jail today than China does. And that is because we have a broken, and let's admit it, a racist criminal justice system. So we have a major proposal to reform that system. Let me just highlight a few of the aspects of that proposal. Number one, in terms of prevention, we are going to invest in our young people. We're not going to sit back and watch kids drop out of school, not have an education, not have any job training. We are going to invest in our young people in jobs and education so they can go out and make a good living in society. We're going to invest in those things rather than in more jails and incarceration. We are going to end private prisons and detention centers. Because we believe that corporations should not be making money locking up fellow Americans. We're going to end the absurd situation. I want everybody to know this because I think many people don't know it. I didn't know it a few years ago. Right now, we have over 2 million people in jail. We got 20% of those people, some 400,000 people in jail today, right now, who have not been convicted of anything. Do you all know that? Now, how do you stay in jail when you're not convicted of anything? And that is because those people who have been arrested, been charged with a crime, cannot afford the $500 they need for bail. So they're rotting in jail, often forced to agree to a plea bargain, which may work against them. We are going to end the cash bail system in America. And I'll tell you what else we're going to do. We're going to end the so-called war on drugs. And that means we're going to legalize marijuana in every state in this country. And we are going to expunge the records of those who have been arrested for marijuana possession. All of us get sick to our stomachs and horrified when we turn on the TV and we see another mass shooting. And we ask ourselves, what is happening? How can somebody walk into a mall or a school? I mean, I don't even want to describe it because you all know it, and it is too disgusting to even be thinking about. How does it happen? Well, this is my promise to you. We are going to write gun safety legislation, which is what the American people want, not what the NRA wants. And right now, that's what's going on. I'm not going to tell you that everybody in America agrees on all aspects of gun safety legislation. That's not accurate. But what I can tell you is that over the years, as people have witnessed these horrible shootings, there is a coming together between rural states like Vermont and New Hampshire and urban areas like Chicago and LA. There is a coming together between gun owners, of which there are many in New Hampshire and Vermont, and non-gun owners. And what that broad consensus is about is, number one, we need universal background checks. People who have violent histories should not own weapons, guns. We're going to end the so-called gun show loophole and the straw man provision. And in the last few years, there is a growing majority of Americans who now understand something that I believe for like 30 years. And that is, we should not in this country allow for the selling and distribution of assault weapons designed to mow people down. Now, as a United States Senator, I hear a lot of speeches on the floor of the Senate. Not the most pleasant thing in the world. And often I hear from my Republican colleagues who give us their conservative mantra that they believe in small government. They believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people. And what I say to those conservatives, stop your hypocrisy. If you believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people, understand that it is women who must control their own bodies, not politicians and the government. So my promise to you on that issue is, number one, I will never nominate anybody to the Supreme Court or federal courts who is not 100% pro Roe v. Wade. Number two, we will fight for legislation that codifies, puts into law Roe v. Wade. And number three, we will significantly expand funding for Planned Parenthood. Now, this campaign is about two fundamental things. Number one, it goes without saying that we must defeat Donald Trump, the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. It gives me no pleasure to tell you what you already know, that we have a president who is a pathological liar. And by that, I mean, in sympathy to Trump, I don't know that he knows the difference between a lie and the truth. The media has documented thousands and thousands of lies that he has told since he's in office. Every day he is lying, okay? Furthermore, he is running an extremely corrupt administration. He is a racist, and it gives me no pleasure to say this. I have, conservative friends in Congress. We disagree, but, they are not racist as Trump is. They're not sexist. They're not homophobes. They're not xenophobes. They are not religious bigots. Throughout the history of this country, from, way back when, and all of the terrible things that were done to the Native American people, the abomination of slavery and all kinds of discrimination. What the struggle of this country was about is to become a more democratic and just society. That we try to end the discrimination that has existed not only against African Americans and Latinos, but the Irish, the Catholics, the Italians, Jews, whatever it may be. We try to move in the direction that Dr. King wanted us to look at people as human beings, judge them on who they are, not the color of their skin or superficial differences. That's the direction that we have tried to move in with great struggle as Americans. That's been the history of America. And now we have a president who is trying to take us back, trying to divide us up by the color of our skin, or by where we were born, or by our sexual orientation, or by our religion, or by our gender. We are not going to allow Trump to get away with that. We're going to bring our people together. We are going to bring our people together, black and white, Latino, Native American, Asian American, around an agenda that works for all of us. So defeating Trump is obviously enormously important, but it is not the only thing that we have got to do, all right? What we have got to do is transform our economy and our government so that it represents all of us, not just the wealthy and billionaire campaign contributors. And the message of our campaign is, as you know, it's us, not me. And that is, while it's a very nice bumper sticker, really is, it is actually a profound moral and political statement. That's what it is. Us, not me. What does it mean? It means essentially that we look at human life very differently than Trump and his friends do. What they say is, hey, the function of Life is to make as much money as I can, and I will lie and cheat and step on people in order to do that. And when I become a billionaire man, I am great, I am successful. Our view is very different. Our view is to understand that as human beings, we are better human beings when we are compassionate, when my family cares about your family, when your family cares about my family, when we understand that we are all in this together. That reaching out, that every family in America has its problems, every person has their problems. That reaching out and helping other people, working with other people, makes us much better human beings than stepping on other people. And that's what our set of principles are about. So what this campaign is also doing is not only having an agenda that works for working people, we are identifying those entities in society that are happy with the status quo. When I talk about income and wealth inequality, 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society. When I talk about folks in New Hampshire and Vermont working 2 or 3 jobs, and yet 49% of all new income goes to the top 1%, we are appalled when we hear that. But the people on top are not appalled. They think it's great. Rich are getting much richer. What could be better than that? So in order to bring about change, it's not good enough for politicians to say, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. We have to ask ourselves, how does it happen? Why do we have more income and wealth inequality in America today than at any time in the last 100 years? Why are we the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people? Why do 45 million Americans have student debt and college is increasingly unaffordable for working families? Why are we not leading the world in the challenge of climate change? Why do we have more people in jail than any other country, et cetera, et cetera? And we're going to ask ourselves why. And that takes us back to who controls this country, who owns this country, the power structure of this country. This is a discussion you don't see on television. You got all those cameras there. You're not going to see this discussion on television. Okay? And that leads us, and you're not going to hear that discussion in Congress as well. You don't hear that discussion when people are bought and sold by wealthy campaign contributors, because that is an essential part of the problem. What we understand to bring about real change is that real change never takes place from the top on down, always from the bottom on up. Think about the history of America. Think about the struggles of the labor movement to stand up and fight for decent wages. Think about the civil rights movement. Think about the women's movement. Think about the gay rights movement. Think about the environmental movement. These are movements that involve tens of millions of people, not one person sitting there on top. And that is what Us, Not Me is also about. It is an understanding. No one else will tell you this who's running for president. That if we are going to make the changes that the American people want and deserve, yes, we're going to have to take on Wall Street. Yes, we're going to have to take on the insurance companies. Yes, we're going to have to take on the drug companies. Yeah, we're going to have to take on the fossil fuel industry. Yes, we're going to have to take on the military-industrial complex. Yes, we're going to have to take on the prison-industrial complex. Now, I wish I could give you a great speech. Don't worry about that. We'll just move forward. But you know that's not true. You know there have been honest people for 100 years talking about all the great things they wanted to do, but it never happened. It never happened because we have not yet successfully taken on the greed and corruption of the corporate elite. So that is what this campaign is about. I'm asking a lot of you. Obviously, I'm asking for your votes on Tuesday, but I'm asking for more than that. I am asking you to work with me after our inauguration, to come back and to say, yes, we are going to stand together and say that in America, if you work 40 hours a week, you're not going to live in poverty. Yes, education is a human right for all of our people, regardless of their income. Yes, health care is a human right. Medicare for all. Yes, we are going to lead the world in climate change and save the planet. So that is where we are right now. That is where we are right now. And on Tuesday, a few days from today, will be an enormously important day. If we win here in New Hampshire, and with your help, I think we can win. It'll make it easier for us to win in Nevada and in South Carolina and in California. It will make it easier for us to win the Democratic nomination and then have the opportunity to soundly defeat the most dangerous president in American history. Thank you all very much.
Everybody, we love the hall is beautiful. You're a wonderful crowd. We want to do a group